Hello. Okay, I guess I'm online. Hi, everyone. I see you popping on. I'm so happy to have you here. I have never done this before, so I am looking for where I can share my screen with you. Hmm. I saw the button before, but now I don't see it. Oh no. Select. Nope, that's not it. Oh, well, dang. Aha, I see the button now. Awesome. Okay, so I'm sharing, and without further ado, welcome to EROS. This is the first installment in my 1111 series, which I plan to do on the 11th of every month. In the 1111 series, we will be doing a symbological deep dive on the theme of that month's tropical zodiac sign. So that means we'll start with a presentation by me on the topic using the lens of symbol speak, and then we'll move into a group discussion at some point during the live stream. This month we are in tropical Scorpio, and you're probably someone who knows about astrology already if you follow someone like me. So Scorpio is strongly associated with sexuality and also the occult, magic with a K, esotericism, and things like that. At first, on the superficial level, the connection between sexuality and the occult is not immediately obvious. Like what do they have to do with each other? But in this presentation, we will talk about why sex and the occult are so deeply interrelated. Also, if you'd like to be notified about the next 1111 event in the series, then subscribe to me here on YouTube or subscribe to me on Substack. So before I officially start, I want to make sure I can see the chat while I'm doing this. It just disappeared from my screen. Thank you for your patience, my loves. Okay. There we go. Oh, Mickey says he's only seeing an all black screen. Oh, goodness. Okay. It says I'm sharing it, though. Can you guys see that? I'll wait for someone to say yes before I continue. There it is? Okay. So now here's the challenge. If I switch over, thank you guys. I love you so much. All right, now can you still see it? Because I just switched the tab so that I can control the slideshow. Perfect. Okay, cool. Yay, we can officially start. And we're starting with a very, very beautiful quote by the visionary artist Alex Gray, who says, "Love feels like a cosmic force. We can't explain it or measure it with instruments, yet the knowledge and experience of love is proof enough and validates the fundamental insights of the mystical traditions. Many religions declare the likeness of God and love. Beyond the skin, primordial energies of Eros channel through us. Truly miraculous that our biochemistry and anatomy support the experience of our imaginations, projections of passion. How would the universe exist were it not for the love rights of Shiva and Shakti? Love is the attraction, tension, and dynamism that plays itself out on every level in our lives. Doesn't the electron love the nucleus? Taoism abstracts this principle with the yin-yang symbol. Hinduism and Tantric Buddhism use symbols of the union of cosmic lovers, Shiva and Shakti, or Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri. Temporal form is secretly and erotically interpenetrated by timeless, formless primordial reality. This is the real sacred marriage, the true hieros gamos. Love is the mystic background to the foreground of surface reality. Absolutely beautiful. So when we think about love specifically as expressed through erotic attraction, what we're looking at is a highly charged interplay between the inner and outer worlds. Just a quick reminder, when I refer to the inner world, I'm talking about your unseen self. So your mind, your imagination, your feeling states, being states, your beliefs, ideas, thoughts, and so on. And the outer world is reality as made manifest around you. Some would call this the physical world, or erroneously, the objective world. So erotic attraction is an interplay between your inner world and outer world. For the feminine, Eros can look consumptive. It is an attempt to pull that which is outside back into the mystery of the inner world. And this looks on the physical level like her receiving a lover. For the masculine, Eros is penetrative, moving outward. It attempts to fully hurl oneself into the mystery. So these are inverse, complementary movements of energy, and this is what we call polarity. And this quote really blatantly expresses that whole concept of Eros being an attempt to merge. A kiss is the beginning of cannibalism. Very provocative quote. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I thought it would be cool to contemplate together here. Whether expressed through the feminine or the masculine or some secret third thing, because we love the gray area here, eroticism is essentially an attempt to merge with that which one perceives, to dissolve and eliminate all separation, leaving only a sense of oneness in its place. And I'll take the opportunity here to mention the shadow. This is a term coined by Carl Jung. He's not the inventor of the concept of the shadow, but he popularized it in this modern age. So when we talk about the shadow, we're talking about aspects of our own self, our own mind, our own personality that we have become unconscious of. For a variety of reasons, we can disown parts of ourselves due to trauma, rejection in childhood, criticism by others, shame, fear, guilt. We can even be repressing parts of ourselves that are positive, so to speak. Like we might be unaware of aspects of ourselves that are really talented and beautiful and amazing. So we'll be talking about the shadow throughout this presentation. So keep that definition in mind. So I mentioned polarity, and this duality is a condition of unconsciousness, because at the highest levels of consciousness, pure I am consciousness, when you're fully reunited with God in your awareness, there is no other. Everything is all one. But we have this funny way of forgetting this as humans. Deep down, we do recognize that we're all interconnected. And this interconnectedness could be called love. And this is why it is said that God is love. Even the Christian Bible acknowledges that. So when approached unconsciously and outside of love, which is again to say outside of God awareness, sex and sexuality can actually make us feel even more separated from each other, more othered from each other. So I perceive sex and sexuality as the gateway and invitation into experiencing oneness through this physical attempt to merge with each other that metaphysically symbolizes an attempt to reunify the conscious and unconscious. But again, when this whole act is approached without that key ingredient of consciousness, it ends up just further splitting the psyche into more and more fragments, and this can cause a great deal of emotional pain. So in magic, sexual desire is not a detriment to spiritual development. I know a lot of us have grown up with religious guilt and shaming, and we have a hard time releasing that guilt and releasing those blockages and seeing sexuality as something that can be positive or even divine and sacred. Said plainly, the sexual path is a fundamental aspect, if not the foundation of the spiritual path. So to separate sex from spirituality leads to poor health and depression and neuroses, as thousands of years of religious control that are based on guilt and shame have made abundantly clear to us. So today we will be doing some symbological case studies on atypical or deviant manifestations of eroticism, like objectum sexuality, which is the attraction to objects, paraphilias, and more. And we'll be doing this through my lens of symbol speak, which is my method for interpreting life itself as a dream, the same exact way you would interpret the symbols in a work of literature or a grand work of art. So let me move on to 5. Awesome. And by the way, if you have any questions, any comments while I'm making this presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will be looking over here. So the first thing you need to know is that all sexual desire, with no exceptions, is symbolic at its core. The Heilig, or this is a word from Gnosticism, which means materialist, somebody who is not able to sense the spiritual dimension of reality, and they think everything is purely physical. So the Heilig conception of reality tells us that sexual attraction is entirely biologically driven. So for example, many of us have heard this theory from evolutionary psychology that men find wide hips attractive because wide hips signal fertility or something like that. But this completely ignores the fact that many men find women with narrow hips attractive, and those women are no less fertile than women with wide hips. So while Heiligs are busy trying to find purely material explanations for the mystery of sexuality, us pneumatics are over here interpreting our sexual desires symbolically and getting to the spiritual essence behind sexuality. So remember, the function of symbols and symbolism is to act like a funnel through which the transcendent can be poured into the mundane reality, the physical reality. So thus, every sexual desire has behind it some sort of symbolic meaning. And we all intuitively understand this. We all intuitively understand that our sexual desires are symbolic at their core, and that there's something far greater than just meets the eye behind what we find attractive. Sexual preferences might seem superficial or shallow on the surface, but there's always a far deeper meaning. So here comes the most radical premise of this whole presentation. It is no less strange to find a certain hair type or eye color attractive than it is to find a foot or a fence attractive. And that might sound really strange to hear, and it might even sound offensive. You might be thinking, wait, hey, I just like brunettes. I'm not like those weird foot fetishists, right? Those guys are strange. But when you'll see throughout this presentation, the difference between a preference and a paraphilia is actually fairly arbitrary. Really, the only difference between them is the degree of yearning and desperation and pathology behind the desire. Ultimately, every desire is symbolic, and learning how to interpret these desires symbolically is what we'll be learning today. So start by taking a look at our first case study, which is objectum sexuality, which is when someone is attracted to objects. I chose this video we're about to watch because the woman in this video is very well spoken and seems to be like really, really close to having the psychological breakthrough about why she finds objects attractive. You'll see she speaks in highly symbolic terms. And let me know if you can hear this video, guys. Oh, sorry. I was trying to get rid of that bar at the top. Get it. I'll just do bar.
You're Steve. I'm Flesh. You Rust. I'm Dave. You stand so tall. I look so meek. You're cold. I'm warm. You shine. I sing. And though we seem unlikely pair, this woman in your spire will build a bridge from me to you, my tower, I adore.
Wonderful. So, Erica, that was you marrying the Eiffel Tower. You had your last name changed to Eiffel. Okay, okay. Isn't this a little different? A little interesting? This is not a joke. She's not like trying to get press, because you know some people do some crazy things in the world and they try to get press. This is real. Okay, when we see you there marrying the Eiffel Tower, is it like you're kissing it and stuff? Like, is there like a romantic feeling that you have for it?
Well, naturally, when you're in love, there's an element of romance involved. So, yeah.
So you said that you were in love with a bridge before.
Yes.
And now you're in love with the Eiffel Tower. You married the Eiffel Tower. Why don't you explain to people what this is, that this is not a joke? What is it called when people are in love with objects?
Actually, I'm what they call an objectum sexual.
Objectum sexual.
Objectum sexual.
Which is?
It's basically the orientation to love objects. We develop relationships on a spiritual, mental, and for some also a physical level.
With objects.
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever dated and loved a person romantically?
Actually, I tried, but it was so outside of my element to try to do this.
Did you ever think that there was something wrong with you growing up, loving objects?
Well, actually not until I was about 14 years old, because up till then, I actually thought everyone was like me.
You thought everybody loved objects. What was
Yeah.
the first object that you were in love with as a child?
The real serious object was a bridge called Fairbanks.
Fairbanks Bridge.
Yeah.
And what was your relationship with that bridge?
Well, I saw this bridge every day on my way to school and back again, and I just felt that I drew some strength from this bridge, and I just felt there was a sense of connection, and I just developed these strong longing feelings for the bridge.
But there was a flood, and that bridge perished. It went under.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult things I ever went through, especially at that age. There was the river's water's really high,
Yeah.
and we had just crossed the bridge, and about 2 cars after that, the bridge collapsed into the river.
And you're getting emotional right now talking about that.
I don't think that anyone ever recovers from the loss of a loved one. I don't care how much time passes. The heart doesn't heal like that. I mean, you can try to put it out of your mind, but your heart always has that scar. So yeah, it was very emotional. It's like seeing someone murdered in front of you. So yeah.
And so you had an emotional reaction then. Did you cry? Did people, how old were you?
Yeah, I was 14 years old when I fell in love with the bridge. We had a relationship about 3 years, so it was a pretty strong relationship. It was about 17.
So you say you had a relationship.
Yeah.
Do you think that the bridge, or going even now, the Eiffel Tower, is aware of your existence?
I mean, I sense that, and I know it seems crazy for everyone to, get this idea of that, but, I've always been able to sense, some reciprocation from my objects.
Okay, for instance, the Eiffel Tower. You married the Eiffel Tower.
I did, yeah.
So, did you propose to the Eiffel Tower?
Actually, she proposed to me. And no, I know. Okay. Actually, I had gone there with some friends, and I planned on photographing her with her lights on. And it was like, I kept trying to get these pictures. And then all of a sudden, I got my camera up and her lights went out. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, all this work for nothing. And then all of a sudden, it was just like, I looked up and she just came alive. I mean, it was like all these lights, and it was like a fireworks display, just this display. And technically, only after the fact, I learned that her lights don't do that. And it was just like this really special thing. I don't know what the purpose was, but all I know is in my heart, I really felt that, she was crying out, because here's this beautiful tower in Paris, and she's surrounded by all these people in love with each other. Mm-hmm. And they look at her and they go, oh, she's so beautiful, but they don't see anything beyond the beauty. It's like, I would liken it to a supermodel. People look at supermodels and they see the absolutely gorgeous exterior, but do they actually think about, the depth, the inside?
Yeah, but a model's a human being.
Yeah, it's true, a human being. Yeah. But to me, the Eiffel Tower, she really resonates with me. And
so the Eiffel Tower, you call her.
I do, and it's only because the English language restricts me to this. If I use the word it automatically de-animates the object. And
so why not say him?
I don't know. It's the sense that the object, she's the Grand Madame of Paris.
So you feel like she's feminine. She's
right,
has
and in
more
the
of a
French
feminine.
language, the pronoun, is la Tour
The
Eiffel.
Tour Eiffel, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so would you consider yourself to be a lesbian with your objects?
I don't see it like that, actually.
Are you attracted to male
yeah,
objects?
there are objects that have a male presence.
Okay.
But again, it's not like you can lift up the leg on the Eiffel Tower and check to see what,
Yeah,
her
it's
gender
just what
is.
you feel. Okay. Have you ever had sex with a human being?
Actually, I tried, because I basically stayed in the closet for a really long time with my OS.
In the closet?
In the closet, meaning that I didn't want to
Show people that you had this?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I had a kind of a bad experience when I was 14, when my mother walked in on me, and I just happened to have the object I loved at the time in bed with me. I was completely innocent.
What was the object?
My drums. I used to play drums, and I just felt this longing to pull them into bed with me. And my mother woke up the next morning, my mother woke me up the next morning, and when she saw me, she just shrieked and freaked out and told me I was going to go to hell because, what are you doing? And so that was it. I mean, I went in the back of the closet, shut the door, took the key, and
threw it out. So did you you tried to date guys?
I did. I put on a front for quite a long time. I went out and I'd be with these guys, and they'd always kind of try to push the sexual issue and stuff. And I would just say, well, I'm waiting till I get married.
I understand that you were questioning your sexuality. You thought, okay, maybe I'm not attracted to guys. Maybe it's...
Right. I actually did try to date a woman as well, just because I was doing anything I could to try to fit into mainstream. Because, it's really difficult. You go out with all your friends, and, my girlfriend's talking about, hey, that guy is so good looking, he's so hot, and blah, 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 blah. And I couldn't say anything. It was like, what was I going to say? Oh, this bridge is so sexy, and he's got really nice lines, and engineering and blah,
Yeah.
They'd
be like, oh, no.
So I just sat there and quietly listened to them all, express themselves, and I couldn't do it.
And what about your mother now? You said back then she said you were going to hell. Now you are publicly, have married the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
You're publicly saying that you like this bridge. What is your relationship like with her?
Unfortunately, there is no relationship anymore. I mean, I was honest with her before I ever came out to the public. I told her, and I said, look, I need you to understand a little bit more about what, I was going through when I was younger and why I was the way I am.
Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be right back.
So there is so much I want to point out about this interview. It is packed with material we could contemplate and dissect for hours. But what's funny is when I was watching this, I was having the thought as she was describing the different objects she was in love with. For some reason, I was thinking this sounds like unresolved mother issues from her developmental years. And then she told the story about how her mother walked in on her when she was with her drum set as a teenager and had this extremely negative, rejecting response. And so I know I'm projecting onto this woman, Erica, when I say this, but it's not hard to imagine or to conclude that this very public, performative marrying of objects could be, on some level, her psyche's rebellion against what she felt was her mother's rejection, and almost like overcompensating for the rejection she felt from her mother. And it is key that she perceives the Eiffel Tower as this feminine, right? Who is our first introduction to the feminine? It is our mother. So let's move along to the next slide. She later, I don't remember why, if she divorced the Eiffel Tower or what. Oh no, she said she was polyamorous with the Eiffel Tower. So she also then additionally developed a relationship with this fence, and that is a separate video you can find on YouTube. Erica Eiffel Marries a Fence, I think it's called. And so I find this so fascinating that there is a common thread here. And if you just step back and look abstractly at the different objects she described being attracted to, oftentimes they're architectural. Not all of them, like her drum set, or she also mentioned having a bow, like a bow and arrow that she was attracted to. She was a professional archer, high ranking in that field. But specifically in regards to the Eiffel Tower, and then the Berlin Wall was another one she mentioned in her Tyra interview, and the Fairbanks Bridge, there's a clear common thread emerging here. And if you listen to the words she had used to describe the Eiffel Tower and the Berlin Wall and such, she used the terms strength and support and power. And then in the case of the fence, what is a fence but a literal physical manifestation of the concept of boundaries? So you can start to get a picture of what might be happening in her inner world by what she reaches for in the outer world, and what her eros, her erotic drive, pulls her towards in an attempt to merge and complete herself within. It's most likely that this woman internally doesn't feel very well defined, doesn't feel very well supported, and that's why she finds these objects so attractive. And I mean, it's easy to look at someone like her and kind of make fun of her and think she's particularly psychologically disturbed. But like I said before, I really mean it when I say this. It's no less strange to be attracted to a certain hair color or eye color. Because decontextualized, there's really nothing erotic or, about hair. It doesn't make any sense to have the attractions we have unless you understand symbology, unless you understand that the psyche speaks the language of symbols, and then it all makes sense. So we're going to move into kind of a fun case study of this phenomenon called toonophilia, which is attraction to cartoons. So in the making of this presentation, I learned that there are people who are attracted, very, very attracted, to a specific character in the animated film The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And this character, I believe his name is pronounced Clopin. So I'm not going to play the video for you now, but somebody made a video where they took all 5 of the instances where Clopin appears on camera and just made a compilation of that. And there's nothing else. It's just Clopin in the movie. And the comments on this video, I put some examples for you here on the screen, are people saying, "This man is so hot. I desire him carnally. I simp for this man. I'm a lesbian and even I think he's hot. And this man is the most attractive man I've ever seen. Please, God, tell me why." So a lot of people in the comments are either freaking out that they're attracted to Clopin, or comforting each other and reassuring each other that they're not alone in this unusual attraction. So I was wondering too, I wonder what it is, because I do not find this cartoon character attractive. But I was wondering why so many people seem to feel this way. And then I found this comment. I don't even know how to pronounce that username, just whatever. This person said, "I have a theory that Clopin is not actually human, but an angel of trickery and judgment. This theory does kind of explain a couple things." Ding, ding, ding. That's how we know we are dealing with not the actual cartoon character, but the archetypal energy behind the cartoon character, what that character represents in the movie. And I don't have great memories of the movie. I saw it when I was very young, but just from clips online, I gather that Clopin is a little bit mischievous. He's got that trickster energy going on, this sort of omniscience that's a bit unnerving as the narrator of the film. And so you never know if you can fully trust him. And so I would wager a guess that the people who find him attractive, there's something about his jester, trickster, clown, archetypal energy that is what their psyche is actually intrigued by and actually wants to experience through sexual merging. And then there are other examples. Recently, I wish I had put this in the presentation, but recently I found some examples of memes where people are talking about how attractive they think Spirit the horse is. I don't know if you guys have seen Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. It's that movie about the horse who gets taken captive and then fights for his freedom. So many people say that something about that animated horse is just so sexy and so handsome, which, problematic because it borders on bestiality. But again, through this symbological lens, it does make sense that someone internally who doesn't feel like they're their most free, independent self might see this cartoon representing freedom and find that very attractive. Again, because everything comes back to, when it comes to Eros, everything comes back to wanting to pull into us what we feel like we've lost, what we feel we've disowned in ourselves and been fragmented from along the way in our development, and reunite with it once more. I would love to know in the chat if any of you have ever had a crush on a cartoon character. I'll tell on myself. I used to have a crush on Double D from Ed, Edd and Eddy, which is it was so bizarre to me because this character is not sexual in the least bit. In fact, he was quite a dweeb, really nerdy and strange. But like now with the symbol speak lens that I have, I can go back and look at that weird cartoon character crush I had as a kid and see that what it was actually I was attracted to the sort of attempt at a moral character that this cartoon character had. It was like this show is full of all these other characters who were always up to no good and doing mischief, and it was just debauchery all around. And Double D was like the one with a good conscience who was always trying to do the right thing, would always question his friends and ask why they were going to make these bad decisions. And I guess somewhere deep down in my psyche as a teenager, I thought that was pretty great. So anyway, and no one is in the chat telling me whether they've ever had a crush on a cartoon character. I feel betrayed, guys. Anyway, so far we've talked about fairly innocuous erotic desires, manifestations of Eros, but the fact of the matter is sometimes sexuality can get very dark. Sometimes people okay, before I go into this slide, someone is talking in the chat and telling me who they've been attracted to. There was a cute 80s female cat in the Heathcliff show. Okay, so my homework for you is to think about that cartoon character in the context of the show and what archetypal energy they were expressing. That is probably what you actually found attractive in this cartoon character. And then someone else said, not a cartoon, but I remember having an intrigue around the car, KITT, in Knight Rider, and kind of Optimus Prime if I had to go cartoon. That's interesting. They're both kind of vehicular. Optimus Prime is a transformer, and the car in Knight Rider. So these highly technological cars, there's something there. I wonder if you have a standout memory from your childhood involving cars, involving high-tech vehicles or something of that nature. Or you could even just symbolically interpret the components of those attractions. For example, you could interpret what a car means to you, maybe like progress, forward movement, and then the conscious aspect of them, or the technologically advanced aspect of them, being almost like a car that can protect you. Or I don't know about Optimus Prime, but whatever it means to you, that is your homework to figure out for the sake of your psyche. And Michael says, I will do that homework. Christy says, I think it was the voice for both, something mercurial. Okay, so the voice of those entities, I guess. Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that, you guys. I love that we can have that kind of openness here. So back to the dark side of sexuality. I don't know how to transition from cartoon characters to paraphilias, but the reality is sexuality can get very dark, and it is the same darkness of the unconscious. So I'll put it this way: the more deviant and harmful a person's sexual desire is, the more fragmented they are from themselves, from others, the further they are from a sense of oneness with all things, right? So the further they are from love. So when you're getting into something like vorophilia, which is the desire to eat someone alive and digest them, right? This is kind of like related to cannibalism. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm a kink shamer. Not that people should feel shame. That's not necessarily the way to heal. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this is totally normal and understandable. No, this is a clear sign of some sort of illness in the psyche, some sense of unwellness in the psyche, a fragmentation, a splitting off. If you are at a point where your sexuality is something that you use to harm others or want to harm others with, or if you want to be harmed in some way, we know that we're dealing with the shadow. And so if anyone wants to take a stab at symbolically interpreting what a foot fetish means, you are very welcome to do so in the chat. I also invite you to symbolically interpret what a furry is, or you can throw out your own examples in the chat of different paraphilias, kinks, fetishes that you may have heard of in your lifetime and always kind of wondered about, like, oh, that's weird. Why are people attracted to sitting on birthday cakes, you know, like, I mean, you could say it's just purely physical, it's for the sensation, but then there's a reason some people's psyches choose specific objects, specific situations, specific people, and things like that. So let's go, for example, on the foot fetish, because I think of all of these, it's the most tame. Foot fetish people get a lot of flack. You know, they're made fun of a lot. They're the butt of a lot of jokes. But like I said, there's really no attraction that's any less than any other. Shame really has no place in this conversation. If we're interested in consciousness, we must be able to look at everything just in the clear light of consciousness. So when you think about what a foot is, right? A foot is the foundation of the whole body. It's what supports all of you. It carries all of your weight. And it is directly in touch with the earth. So it has this grounding effect, right? And so you could wager that someone who is attracted to feet, they're actually attracted to what the foot means to them as something that makes them feel very supported, something that allows them to stand tall in life, right? And that in and of itself is not wrong to want, right? It's just that in the case of fetishes, kinks, paraphilias, they can often cause a person a great deal of distress depending on how pathological the desire is and how preoccupied and obsessive they are about it. And so if you're looking to heal from some sort of attraction that you don't understand why you have it, the key is to understand how to interpret things symbolically. So we're going to move in. Teal Swan, I know she's a polarizing figure, if you will, but I love a good polarizing figure. I love when someone can trigger people and make them think in new ways. So I think she did a really great job in this video of interpreting somnophilia, which is one of the darker paraphilias. It's when you find a sleeping or unconscious person very arousing, when you are aroused by the idea of having your way with someone who is unconscious. So a date rapist might have somnophilia. So we're going to watch, and by the way, I don't really believe in trigger warnings, but this can be disturbing to watch, especially if you yourself have been the victim of date rape or something of that nature, something similar. She just really bluntly and clearly dissects the symbolic meaning behind why someone might have this attraction, where it comes from in terms of their psychological development in childhood. And I think it is so important to be able to look at these things head on without any fear. So let's do that together.
Feel in your day-to-day life. For example, if we take the person who said, I watch porn where people are totally inebriated and even unconscious and someone's fucking them, and they do a deep dive to unpack it, they may discover, I love that the person can't say no. This makes me feel totally and completely received and like they can't not take me in. They can't argue or put up a fight. They go limp, which gives me total control. I get to decide what to do and do whatever I want that feels good to me, and I decide when it's over. They have a higher pain tolerance because they're inebriated, which makes me feel more of a sense of freedom to not have to restrict myself. Also, they have no inhibition either. They feel no shame. The other person's shame and also my shame inhibits me, and I don't like it. It's carnal, and this means that I can act on my urges rather than being restricted by my mind. Okay, from there, you can look to what traumas in your life sit at the opposite side of the spectrum emotionally from the answers that you just gave. This is your core trauma in life. Again, using our previous example, the man whose fetish was to have sex with people who were inebriated, he can easily pinpoint how he felt the opposite of these things that he gets out of the sexual experience that arouses him most, and also how he's still in some measure of residual pain now in his current life. He would say, in my childhood, my mother was super, super controlling and prevented me from letting myself out. I was expected to be totally inhibited. I had to listen to other people, but was never allowed to express myself. I was never received. Every single thing I wanted, my parents said no to, as if I existed for other people's pleasure only. I am so tired of being told no. I was not allowed to take action or control. I was expected to do exactly what I was told to do, and most of all, to behave. Behave, behave, behave. I had to be a good boy, well beyond the age where I became a man. The idea of being able to control someone else carries a feeling of revenge, which makes me feel empowered. Okay, from there, you're going to try to recognize the ways that you prevent yourself from getting those desires and needs, basically oppositional forces to what you're looking to get from your sexual thing. So again, we're going to use our example of the man who has the fetish towards inebriation. Ready? He may say, in my life right now, I've been working to get more empowered, but at the end of the day, I still feel controlled by my family, which is controlled by my mother. And I let this happen. Whenever she tells me to do something, I do it. I feel inhibited. I watch myself being passive in situations where I need to take action. I don't express myself. I feel any person I'm in a relationship with is the one that has the upper hand. I'm frustrated because my sexuality reveals that I am not satisfied in my life, and it really points to what I am needing in my life in general. I can see that I want to feel uninhibited, and yet I restrict myself in almost every situation, even ones where it is completely and totally unnecessary to do so. I also choose partnerships with controlling women, when what I really want and need is a woman who is not controlling. And I'd even go further and say that what I need is a woman who wants to be on the opposite end of the spectrum, like a lifestyle submissive. It's important to note that a person's sexuality may be multidimensional rather than one-dimensional. For example,
Okay, we're going to stop there. I would really love to hear how it feels for some of you to hear this kind of frank, symbolic appraisal of something so dark, right? I think what makes it so challenging to actually heal some of these darker paraphilias that some people may experience is that sex is already taboo to us collectively. But when it comes to these darker ones, it is just so easy to forget that they have an origin. These paraphilias have an origin in developmental wounding. And that is not at all to excuse the way that a person may act on these paraphilias. It is, though, to bring an understanding, the light of consciousness to the conversation, and give the opportunity to heal. If it's only when we're able to really have these fearless kinds of conversations that we might actually start to see the end of this kind of extractive, self-centered expression of sexuality that really is the norm in our modern life. So that brings me to our next slide. Unconscious sexuality, the phenomenon of the succubus and the incubus. So if you are not familiar, the succubus is a female sex demon who drains sexual energy out of a sleeping victim. And the incubus is the male equivalent who penetrates the sleeping victim. So if you've ever had a night terror, if you've ever had a nightmare where you wake up and you feel like there's something sitting on top of you, that is said to be either the succubus or the incubus, draining your life force out of you while you're unaware. And so there are plenty of myths about this across all cultures because it is such a widespread phenomenon, this feeling of being drained, being extracted from a parasitic or vampiric entity, taking advantage of us when we're in a state of unconsciousness and draining energy out of us. And so what I have to say about that is to continue engaging in any form of sexuality without a conscious intention behind it is to follow the succubus or the incubus path. This unconscious mode of being is characterized by drainage, extraction, vampirism, wastefulness, and degeneration. This is why people who attempt to have sex with no consequences, which is to say with no responsibility towards their own health or towards the other person they're engaging with, people who attempt to have sex with no consequences end up oftentimes feeling very icky and depleted afterwards. And they're not sure why, especially because in our day and age, you know, sexual liberation is being sold as this practice of sexuality divorced from any sort of feeling, divorced from relationships, right? Casual sex. And all of this that I'm saying is not coming from a place of judgment, like this is wrong. This is actually coming from my personal experience and also observation of many people who are bringing more consciousness to their sexuality across the board. Everyone I know who's on the consciousness path to bring light to this eighth house arena of life, the Scorpio house, right, of sexuality. Everyone that I know unanimously agrees that the desire for casual sex tends to be concurrent with an avoidance of love, avoidance of dealing with the heart area, with feelings, love for oneself, love for the other person. So I know that there are many polarity coaches out there, all sort of social movements right now that are romanticizing the succubus or incubus dynamic as if it's a spiritual achievement to be able to handle being drained on that level or to drain others on that level. But I will just say it is my firm opinion that if you are genuinely on the path to union with God, it will hurt you to hurt someone else. Full stop. The succubus and the incubus are the unfortunate manifestation of a sexuality that has been divorced from the heart space. The heart space being the energetic vortex through which we bring heaven to earth, right? It is where the higher energetic centers meet with the lower ones. It's the balance of the body right here. And this is where we experience love for others. So others, I say paradoxically, because it's when you start loving, again, going back to the definition of love being God, the oneness, the I am, the all. When you start operating from here, it's a lot harder to perceive someone as an other that you can just bring harm to or drain energy from and not feel guilty about it. So if you can't meet someone at the heart level, can you really say that you recognize your oneness with them? And the good news is there is a much better alternative to this vampiric version of sexuality. And that alternative is conscious sexuality. This is the God or goddess path, seeing the divine in everyone you interact with. So returning to our earlier definition of love, this is not just a feeling of affection for one sexual partner. Love is a recognition of the divinity in our partner and our oneness with our partner, which makes us responsible for them, responsible for their growth, evolution, and coming to consciousness. The difference between the unconscious path of the succubus or incubus and the conscious path of the burgeoning god or goddess is the difference between looking for one's other half and being complete unto yourself. So this is why you always hear that if you want to find your soulmate, you have to stop looking for them, and that you must go inward and you have to love yourself first. We've all heard this, and it's so annoying because it's way too reductive and simplistic, but there is a great deal of truth there, as much as it is annoying to hear, especially if you've been single for a long time, celibate for a long time, and you're just kind of sick of, waiting for that connection to happen. The good news is you are already complete. There is nothing to seek externally in the outer world. The true world, the inner world, is in here. It's with you always. God is within you. And I'll pause there because that is such a profound statement. It's supported by the Bible. It's supported by every religion on both the exoteric and esoteric levels. This statement that God is within you. If you were to really stop and meditate on that and reflect on that, with the presence that it deserves, you would realize you truly have nothing to look for out there. All the satisfaction you could ever desire, including sexual satisfaction, is found within. Because if you have God, what don't you have? How could you be lacking when you have it all in here? So that's something very much worth meditating on as you move on from this presentation. So basically, sexual desire can often act as a signpost pointing us to those parts of ourselves that need our own love. And while it may seem counterintuitive to go inward when your flesh and lust is telling you to do something outwardly with someone else, this is actually the most effective way to deal with that intense pull of lust that can sometimes feel like an overwhelming craving that is never satisfied. In its worst manifestations of lack, you can have a condition sort of like a hungry ghost. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept in Eastern traditions. The hungry ghost is the manifestation of the deep well of wanting in a person that is never satisfied, right? So even though lust tells us to go outward and pull someone in towards ourselves through this outer process, sexual desire is actually an invitation for us to go inward and find that satisfaction inside of us first. And paradoxically, it's only when you go inward first and looking inward towards yourself for God, that God appears in the outer world in the form of the soulmate or the twin flame, the lover, however you want to describe this process. So looking for your other half as though you are only half of a person and you're incomplete is a recipe for codependency, instability, and discontent, and deeply dissatisfying sex, let's be honest. On the other hand, it is when you've accepted your own intrinsic worth and completeness and God within you that your soulmate becomes visible to you. Awakening to your own godhood so you can see your oneness with your partner is how you meet a partner who is also awakened to their godhood and can see their oneness with you. Like two suns illuminating the sky. Together, a union of this caliber can literally change the world. And this is where we're going to talk about The Orgasmic Roots of Pronoia by Rob Bresney. This essay, I strongly recommend that you find it online. It changed my life. I reread it multiple times a year because it is so deeply medicinal. So this essay is about this man, Rob. It's his true story of how he got onto the path of semen retention. He wanted to figure out how to orgasm without ejaculating, which is possible, by the way, if you've never heard of this before. This is a tantric practice that anyone can learn, really. You don't have to be spiritual about it. It can actually just be about muscle control. But in any case, this practice led him to much higher contemplations of God until he met the woman who he would ultimately accept as his soulmate, who had also been on her own path of unlearning succubic tendencies. She was unlearning her desire to drain men, and then came to a point where she felt complete unto herself. And that's when she met Rob, who had arrived at this feeling of being complete unto himself. And before they made love, he had a moment by himself where she left the room, and he said this prayer. He said, I closed my eyes and did a meditation in which I prayed that the love I was feeling for her would remain as pure and generous as it was in that moment. I prayed that my effect on her would always promote her greater good and inspire her to seek out interesting adventures. I visualized us continuing to be able to be both kind and wild with each other. And then in the rest of the essay, they proceed to have sexual union that is so psychedelic and highly conscious, it feels like a massive drug trip, and they end up having, English words don't do it justice. Please go find the essay. It's just that they end up having an experience of godhood with each other. And all of their orgasms turn into prayers. Prayers for people they know, prayers for people they don't know, prayers for the world, and prayers for each other. And that level of consciousness in sexuality can literally change the world. Our prayers do change the world. Our mindset and how we perceive things does affect this quantum universe. And so the difference between succubus and incubus sex, which is all about mutually draining each other, versus God and goddess sex, which is about mutually bringing each other to greater heights of consciousness. That's really the difference between being dead and being alive, to be really, really blunt. So I see that somebody is, oh no. I'm sorry, Rob Bresney blocked you. I will say I am aware that he kind of went off the deep end with being pro-vaccine during COVID. So I remember losing a bit of respect for him, but I can give credit where credit is due. And I see that you're doing the same in the chat, that Pronoia, his book, really is worth reading. And, so another polarizing character, we've all got our contradictions. Oh yeah, that's what it was about. Yeah. Oh, well, you win some, you lose some, I guess. But anyway, I think we're coming to the close here. So thank you all for joining me. I'll remind you that I'm Allison Gray. I am the professor of symbology at the School for Gods. What I do is I put people onto the dreamlike nature of reality and teach them symbol speak, which again is my method for interpreting life itself symbolically, the same exact way that you'd interpret a dream that you have at night, or the symbols in a book that you read, or a painting or a film that you saw, and things of that nature. And the purpose behind interpreting life symbolically is to perceive the unseen behind the scene, right? So in the physical world is so much more than what it looks like on the surface, and learning how to interpret things in the physical world symbolically gives you access to those higher planes of consciousness where you have greater clarity about yourself, your purpose, you know, your role in this life, your gifts, your powers, and the divinity not only of yourself but everyone around you. And Symbol Speak has brought me immeasurable healing and peace, and it is my wish that it'll do that for you as well. So if you'd like to know more about what I do, you can find me at Allicen-Gray.com. That's ALICEN-GREY.com. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, and clearly YouTube. So yeah, I will keep the chat open for another minute or so to see if anybody wants to talk about any particular kinks that they have, kinks that they've seen in others that maybe we want to take we have 5 minutes until 9 o'clock. If anyone wants to do some symbol interpreting on this topic, it's my favorite thing to do. Also be aware that I do one-to-one sessions on this as well. So if you're not comfortable sharing in the public chat, you can contact me about working with me to symbolically interpret something in your life together, whether it's the job that you're in, the relationship that you're in, your sexual desires, anything about your personality you're wishing to change or understand better. You can apply Symbol Speak to basically any and every aspect of life. So yeah, I love this work that I do. I would love to do more of it. And so check out my one-to-one coaching options on my website and my courses, my books, and everything else I offer. All right, I'll keep the chat open a little bit longer, but that pretty much concludes the presentation. Thank you so much, everybody who joined. I love you so much. Oh, okay. Yeah, Deck. I know Teal Swan is a troublesome character. I'll tell you how I perceive her. I think she really does have the gift of clairvoyance. She's really adept at symbol interpretation. I've seen many videos of that nature, like the one I shared with you today, where she interprets, different relationship dynamics, different behaviors that humans have, and things like that. And she is very clear-sighted in that regard. It is just such a shame some of the malignant power dynamics I've seen with her and other people, and I do hope that she heals on that front. Yeah, but I don't want to end on a negative note. You know, we've all got our shortcomings, we've all got our shadows and blind spots. Teal Swan is no exception. Rob Bresney's no exception. I am no exception. So that's why we do this work of talking about symbolism, to bring more light to these blind spots, these shadows that we have, and bring each other to greater consciousness. All right, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat on this topic. So with that, I love you so much, lovelings. And how do I end this thing? Okay, love you. Bye.